Welcome back to the vlog. We're going to be at Capital Casino playing in our usual 1-3 game. We sit down with $500, play for about 30 minutes or so before we finally pick up a hand where we have pocket tens in middle position. One player limps in front of us. We raise to $20. We get a call from a player out back, and the original limper also puts in the call for the 20. So we're going to end up going three ways to this flop with $64 in the center. The flop comes out King 6-4, all hearts. We, of course, do not have a heart in our hand because we have two black tens. First player ends up checking. Multi-way, this is probably just a check, so that's what I do. I end up checking, and so does the player behind us. Turn card comes is a black 9. Pretty good for my hand. If they don't have a king or don't have a flush, I'm probably in the lead. First player now leads for $30. He could be doing this with a king, of course, but more likely he probably has some sort of draw, or maybe he has a medium-sized pair like a 9 or a 6. I put in the call, the other player folds out, and we get the 4 diamonds on the end. Really good card for my hand because it really, all the draws miss, right? The straight draws, the flush draws. The only thing I'm really worried about now is that he has a king or that he flopped a flush. And flopping a flush is really hard to do, and having a king here, well, it's possible, but not likely. So when he puts out a bet for $45, it doesn't take me long to snap it off, and he says, you're good when he turns over the 8-7 offsuit. So it took a while to win our first pot, but at least we won it, right? All right, this next one's kind of weird, but there is a $6 straddle. Two players limp in for the $6. Player who has a very, very tight range puts in a raise to $46. I'm thinking he has aces or kings in this hand. I was probably just going to end up folding, but then a deep stack puts in the call. And I see the other players behind me looking like they're going to call. So I decided to set mine with pocket jacks from the big blind. Of course, if I was up against a regular player, I would 3-bet to isolate him. But here, I'm just going to set mine for $237 and hopefully hit something good. If I don't, I'll just fold. Flop comes out 7-6-5. Horrible flop for an overpair, and even worse flop for an overpair when you know there's a bigger pair out there. I ended up checking it. Player who I assume has a big pair puts in a large bet of $196. You can see how long I thought about it. I just end up mucking that thing. The other players folded, except for the last player. He ended up calling with pocket 4s and caught a 3 to make a straight. The other player didn't show his hand, but I'm sure he had aces or kings. There's a limper for $3. The player raises to 20. I'm on the button with ace king. Normally this is a slam dunk 3-bet. But every once in a while, I like to mix it up, and here I put in the call. It's always good to be a little bit deceptive. If you play the same every time, people are going to get a good idea how you play. The other player puts in the call, so we go three ways to a flop. That comes 8-5 deuce rainbow. Obviously not a great flop for ace king, but it's really not a great flop for anyone raising or calling a raise unless they had a pocket pair. First player checked. Next player bets out for $25. Rather a small bet. I was considering raising at this point, just representing that I have a pair or a hand stronger than theirs. But I decided if I was going to have something like really good, I would probably just flat here, play in position. So that's what I decided to do. The other player decides to make the call. I kind of regret not raising now, but we see a turn card that comes a 3 of spades. So I got 2 overs and a gut shot now. First player checks. Second player also puts in the check. This is a green light for me to go ahead and try to take this one down now. I don't think anyone has anything. Ace king is probably best. If not, I have 10 outs to make a stronger hand. So I put in $100. They both quickly fold. I win the pot, but I didn't play it as optimal as I should. All right, this next hand we have ace jack of diamonds from the low jack. It's folded to me. I opened for a raise to $20. There's a player on the big blind who gets a little sticky with me, so I figure he might want to come along, and he does. He puts in the call for the $20, and we head off, heads up to a flop that comes out 9-4-3 rainbow. There is one diamond, so we do have a backdoor flush draw. He checks it over, If he doesn't have anything, I think I can just take it down here with a C bet, so I continue for $20. Apparently he does have a little something because he's not willing to give it up, and he puts in a quick call. I was going to give up on this until I saw the 2 of diamonds. He checks it over, and now I'm debating whether I should bet, and if I do bet, what sizing would I use? I decided to go with a little bit of bigger sizing, trying to get folds from all those middling pairs. Of course, if he has a 9, I don't think he's going to be folding. So after some thought, he does decide to put in the call. So I'm putting him on at least a pair of 9s at this point. Of course, the plan is to actually make my hand, and if I catch a king or a queen, I have a chance to bluff. But it doesn't come to that. When it comes an undercard and he checks it over to me, I'm just going to give up because there's no way he's going to be folding a 9 if he called that bet on the turn. And yeah, not much you can do. I check it back. He rolls over 2 black 10s. So yeah, he wasn't going to fold that to a bluff unless it came king or a queen on the end. The very next hand, there was a $6 straddle. I looked down at ace jack suited once again, put in a raise to $25. I get a quick call from the player behind me, one other player at the end of the table, and then the player to the right of me. So we're going to end up going 4 ways to the flop with $101 in, and it comes out the beautiful ace jack deuce with 2 hearts. So I got top 2. There's flush draws out there. There's a couple straight draws. And of course, there's lots of aces available still. I decided to bet into my opponents. And for $40, the opponent directly on my left puts in a call. Now, I don't think he's getting out of line too much. But the way he slapped those chips down, I think he's a little bit upset. Or maybe pretending to be upset. So he could have maybe... doesn't feel like he's good, or he might have flopped a monster. So not quite sure what's going on. I do get another call from the player in the big blind, and the 3 of us see a turn card of a 10 of clubs. Only real hand I'm worried about is someone with king, queen of hearts. Other than that, I think I can get a lot of value from players with a ace and a big kicker, and maybe if someone got 2 pair or something like that, they'll play back. Of course, pocket deuces is always a concern when you have top 2, but so be it if they have it. I bet out for $145. Player next to me goes all in for like $7 more. So I'm guessing he's doing this for value because there's no way I'm going to be folding for $7 no matter what he has. The other player thinks long and hard before finally folding for the 157, and of course, I'm going to put in the money as quick as I can. And we're off to a river card, which happens to be a big blank of the 4 diamonds. So all those ace high draws with a flush draw now miss. He actually rolled over pocket kings, which was a little surprising that he would continue with that on the flop. But lucky for me, I ended up winning this hand and dodged the queen on the river. I pick up a king jack of spades here, and the +1 open for $15. Ended up getting 2 callers. So we're going to go 3 ways to this flop with $46 in. Flop doesn't come out great. It's ace, king, 8 with 1 spade. Both players end up checking to me, so I'm going to go ahead and continue here. Going to assume that neither one has a king. If I get called, I'll reconsider. First player ends up folding. Next one does end up putting in the call. Turn card comes as a 5 of spades. I pick up a flush draw. He checks again. I might be able to get him off a weak ace at this point. And if I don't, I have a flush draw to fall back on. I decide to continue like I have a real hand. And he quickly lets it go. And we take a small pot down. Here I'm under the gun with pocket 9s. Put in a raise to $15. Ended up getting 1 caller from the player in the small blind. He's been fairly active. He just joined the table maybe about 15-20 minutes ago. So don't know too much about him other than he was active the last few hands. Flop comes out 10-6 deuce rainbow. Not bad for 9s, but I decided to check this one back. I figure giving 1 free card shouldn't hurt too much. Turn card comes as an 8. It's a good card for me. If he has something, it's probably not very strong. He leads into me for $15. I'm just going to call, keep his bluffs in. River card comes as a 10. Really good card. Makes it less likely he had a 10 to begin with, and more likely he got counterfeited if he happened to have two pair like 8-6. He does decide to lead into me for $45. This way, I think it's just a super easy call, so I snap it off. He said he only had king high, and we win another small one. That was the last hand of the day, but I have a couple other hands I need to show you from the following day that I think your guys are going to really like. First one comes in a very active game, and I'm in the big blind with queen 10 of diamonds. There was a limp, and then a player raised to 15, and a bunch of players put in the call, so I just decided to put in the call. You can occasionally squeeze here, but there was just a lot of action, and I figure if I hit my hand, I'm going to be able to win a pretty good sized pot. So I just put in the low variance, as they say, call, and we're going to head off to the flop with 6 players in it. Flop comes out 10 high with a deuce 3 of clubs. Not ideal, but when the player in the small blind decides to lead for $30, I don't think I can let it go yet. I was on the edge. I was on the fence of just folding here, but I decided I'm going to call one time. He could be betting a flush draw at this point. The player at the other end of the table puts in the call, reading him for a 10. Turn card comes as 8 of diamonds. The flush draw, I think, would probably slow down at this point, or maybe take a small bet. If he has, say, a set of 2s or 3s, which is a possibility, I figured he would lead very large. And of course, if he has something like a 10 and a bigger card kicker, like a ace or a king, he might lead. But I figured that would be a medium-sized bet. He decides to bet $120. Okay, I'm done. I fold quickly. The other player at the end of the table also ends up folding what he said was Jack 10. The player who was leading out from the small blind did show that he had, in fact, queen 10 of clubs. So it was the same hand we had, but he definitely had a much better flop. He had top pair with a flush draw. And I really liked the way he played this hand. Puts a lot of pressure on hands. I mean, I would have folded an ace 10 there. So good play on his part, and he deserves to win this pot. One player limps in front of me. I decided to raise to 15, trying to isolate them, but that does not work at all because we ended up getting 4 callers for the $15, which is not good when you're raising with queen jack offsuit. Probably shouldn't be raising with queen jack in the first place. Flop comes out 10-4 deuce with 2 spades. Not much for me here, and against 4 opponents, I decided I'm just going to check it. Turn card comes as an interesting one. It's the ace of hearts. And the player who was in the big blind decides to lead out rather quickly, and he makes a bet for $25. This screams like, I have an ace, get out of my pot, and gets a quick call from the player who limped in, who also screaming, I have an ace, I'm just going to call you, but it's a good ace. All right, first thing I'll say is the correct play here is just to fold, because I'm not getting the odds to hit a gut shot, right? But both these players are playing their hands fairly face up, and both of them are kind of risk averse. So I don't think they would like any pressure on it. And I could honestly represent that I have something like ace king, ace 4 suited, ace deuce suited, maybe even slow playing pocket 10s, pocket 4s. Probably wouldn't have pocket deuces in this spot, but the fact that they're a little risk averse and that they know that I know that they're pretty snug in their bets, I decided to go for it. I think I can get away with this a very high percentage of the time, so I raised to $160. The first player ends up making a very, very quick fold to what he said was ace jack. Second player thought for a little bit longer and folds what they said was ace queen, and how I must have flopped a set, that I was trapping them. So it happened to work, but it's not a recommended play.
I thought we agreed you're going to stop doing that shit. You know how dangerous that is? What if your opponent woke up with a big hand? Nice raise.
Well, that last hand showed the benefit of having a tight image. This one is also similar. When you have a tight image, you can occasionally, and I do mean this occasionally, play a hand like 6-4 suited from not the greatest position and play it aggressively. And if you happen to flop something, you're going to make a whole lot of money. Here I have 6-4 of hearts. There is one player who limps. I raised to $20. End up getting a bunch of callers for the $20. So we're going to go 4 ways to this flop with $84 in the middle. Flop comes out Jack 5-3 rainbow. There is one heart, so I do have a backdoor flush draw along with an open ender. Of course, after raising pre-flop, I'm going to go ahead and fire away at this. Representing that I have at least a jack, maybe an overpair. I make it $50. I'll be happy if I get a bunch of folds, but when it gets to the player in the big blind, he is a non-folding big blind player, and he puts in the call. Turn card comes, you guessed it, 2 of spades. We jam it up, we make the nuts. He quickly checks over to me, and I'm just trying to figure out my sizing. Don't want to scare him away, but I don't want to let him in cheap. Got to build a little bit of pot. I put out 100, and he makes a very, very quick call. I think he has something like a possible 5 with a straight draw. Maybe it's like a 5-4. Maybe he picked up a flush draw on the turn with a jack. Either way, I'm just saying no spade, and I'll be fine. River card comes as a 5 of diamonds, which is great if he had that 5-4 or 5-6 type of hand. And he leads into me for $200. Naturally, this is an automatic all-in, so I go ahead and jam. He snap calls, and I show him that I made the straight. Of course, it's good. But it's really important to note that this is a hand you occasionally play. Don't play these hands all the time. If you are, you're playing too many hands, and your opponents will pick up on it. The fact that my opponent never put me on a range that could hit a straight at this point is what ended up costing him. The only hand he thought I would possibly have is pocket jacks. So if you can widen your range a little bit, sometimes it can pay off. Well, that concludes our vlog for the week. Day 1, we won $340. That second day, we ended up winning $400. So not bad overall results. It's nice to get back on the winning ways after a couple rough weeks. And I'd like to say thank you to all of you for supporting the channel. We're getting very, very close to 10,000 subscribers. So if you can just go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you haven't hit it already, that would be wonderful. And if you like, you can hit that like button. That's what like buttons are for. They're for liking, yes. Anyway, thanks again for all your support. We'll see you back here next week. And until then, good luck at the tables. And hope you run good.